On December 7, 1958, Kenneth and Barbara Martin set off from their Portland, Oregon home with their 3 daughters, but the family never returned. For decades, the case remained unsolved. Kenneth Ken Martin was born on September 10, 1904, and Barbara Alien Cable was born in February 1910. The two got married on November 28, 1929, and together they built a life rooted in love, family, and community. By 1958, they had 4 children. Donald, who was 28 years old, Barbara, affectionately called Barbie, aged 14, Virginia, aged 13, and the youngest, Susan, who was just 11. The Martins lived in a cozy 2-story Tudor-style home in Portland, Oregon. Each December, their street transformed into a festive display of lights and decorations, earning it the nickname Candy Lane. This tradition was one the Martins wholeheartedly embraced. Ken, in particular, took great joy in playing Santa Claus for the neighborhood children in the familiar red suit and handing out homemade candy cane ornaments. But the Martins' community spirit was not limited to the holiday season. During the warmer months, they were known to organize summer talent shows, parades, and Kool-Aid stands, turning their neighborhood into a lively and welcoming space. At the time, their oldest child, Donald, was serving in the United States Navy and was stationed in New York State. On the night of December 6, 1958, Ken and Barbara attended a Christmas party in Portland. After enjoying the evening, they returned home to their residence at 1715 Northeast 56th Avenue, located in the Roseway neighborhood of Northeast Portland. They had already discussed plans for the following day, a casual Sunday outing into the countryside with their 3 daughters. That Sunday morning on December 7th, Ken turned down an invitation from their relatives, the Evans family, who had asked him over for dinner. Ken explained that they already had a full day planned and wanted to stick to it. They traveled in their cream and red 1954 Ford Country Squire station wagon heading east toward the Columbia River Gorge. The plan was simple: to collect greenery for homemade Christmas decorations. But while the family's destination was generally known, the specifics of their journey remained vague. Neighbors offered conflicting accounts. One, Ella Chin, said she saw them leave around 2 o'clock p.m., while another, Frank W.A.C., recalled the departure being closer to 1:30 p.m. Later that day, the family's vehicle was spotted at a gas station in Cascade Locks, roughly 0 miles from their home. Dean Baxter, the station owner, said that he sold the Martins $5 of gas around 0 p.m. and watched their car continue eastward. A short time after, the Martins were seen at the Paradise snack bar in Hood River by waitress Clara York, who remembered serving them. Additional unconfirmed sightings placed them along the north bank of the Columbia River in Washington as evening approached. Witnesses recalled specific clothing. Kenneth wore a tan jacket and dark trousers. Barbara was dressed in a navy coat, a plaid jacket, and a black print dress. Barbie had on rolled cuffed jeans and a beige coat. One of the last reported sightings came from Kelsey and Doris Cudson, who claimed that they saw a vehicle matching the Martins under the Bridge of the Gods at dusk. 2 unidentified men stood outside the car, speaking with the passengers inside. After that, the family vanished without a trace. As hours turned into days with no word, theories emerged. Many speculated that the Martins had accidentally driven into the Columbia River. Supporting this possibility, an amateur investigator named Donald D. Bain found tire tracks near a cliff in the dowels and cream-colored paint chips below, consistent with the family's station wagon. Yet, the site's distance from the main road raised doubts that it was merely an accident. Efforts to search the river in that area met resistance. Officers Fred Pierce and Art Pratt opposed sending divers into the water, citing safety concerns. But others, including diver L. Smith, assured Detective Walter Graven that the location was safe for experienced divers. No dive was authorized at the time. Then, after almost 5 months, on May 1st, 1959, a drilling rig in the river hooked onto something heavy near the dowels, but failed to retrieve it. The very next day, while fishing near Cascade Locks, Ellery Colby and his wife spotted 2 bodies in the water. They were recovered and identified as Virginia and Susan Martin, bringing a grim confirmation that the family's fate had taken a fatal turn. Autopsies determined that both girls had drowned. However, a technician noted what he believed were bullet wounds to their heads and brought this observation to Dr. Waterman, the medical examiner. Despite this, the official report made no mention of such injuries, and no law enforcement or media sources at the time indicated signs of foul play. The autopsies also revealed the girls had eaten burgers and fries not long before their end, supporting the earlier account given by Clara York. Traces of aluminum were found on Susan's clothing. An odd detail considering an aluminum plant stood near the area where the drilling rig had made contact with something underwater. After the bodies were discovered, Dr. Waterman received anonymous threatening phone calls from someone warning him not to identify any of the remaining missing Martins. Both girls were cremated, but their urns went unclaimed for 10 years. In 1969, someone finally retrieved them, though who that person was remains unknown. Another theory soon gained traction that the family had been abducted and deliberately forced over a cliff. In 1961, a Thomas resident wrote to the Oregon Journal recounting that they were parked with a companion near Cascade Locks on December 7th when they saw a car pass under the railroad tracks toward the locks. Just moments later, they heard screaming. Upon investigating, they found nothing, but the memory remained unsettling in light of the family's disappearance. Donald Martin, the eldest son and only surviving member of the family, was living in New York at the time of the incident. Despite the gravity of the situation, he did not return to Oregon to assist in the search for his parents and sisters, claiming that his aunt Charlotte advised him to remain in New York. But Charlotte denied this, expressing confusion over his absence. Donald also failed to attend either of his sister's memorial services, later claiming he had confused the dates. As the sole heir to the Martin estate, Donald inherited a total of $36,000, which included a $14,000 double indemnity policy, $6,000 in additional insurance policies, and $13,000 in savings, a sum that would amount to over $370,000. Today, Detective In September 2012, an 18-year-old vanished without a trace in Gainesville, Florida. What began as a missing persons case quickly spiraled into a harrowing investigation involving jealousy, obsession, and premeditated violence. Christian Aguilar was born on November 16, 1993 in Miami-Dade County, specifically in the city of Doral, Florida. He was the eldest son of Carlos and Claudia Aguilar and grew up in a warm and loving household alongside his younger brother. Christian received his early education at Doral Academy Preparatory School. He dreamed of making a difference in the world through science and technology and aspired to become a biomed engineer. In pursuit of this goal, Christian took a significant step forward by enrolling at the University of Florida in Gainesville, located in Alachua County. Outside of academics, Christian led a typical social life for someone his age. He was in a relationship with Erica Freeman. On September 20th, 2012, concern quickly set in when Christian's girlfriend was unable to reach him despite repeatedly calling and sending multiple text messages. Her unease intensified as more time passed without a response, prompting her to contact the authorities and officially report him missing. The search for Christian quickly gained momentum. The police were joined by his devastated family members, close friends, and a large number of concerned community volunteers. Together, they combed through various locations in and around Gainesville, hoping to find any sign of Christian. Their efforts even included aerial surveillance as an air unit was deployed to cover wider ground in the search for clues. Despite the growing scale of the search, days passed with no sign of Christian. Each passing day heightened the sense of dread among his loved ones, yet they refused to give up hope. Flyers were distributed, search parties were organized, and prayers were said endlessly. The community rallied together, holding on to the belief that Christian would be found safe and brought home. Tragically, that hope was shattered on the afternoon of October 12th when a group of hunters stumbled upon a gruesome discovery in a remote, wooded area of Levy County. The partially buried remains they found were later identified through dental records as belonging to Christian. The area where the body was discovered was isolated, adding a chilling layer to an already devastating situation. Christian's remains were sent for further examination, and a medical report was conducted to determine the cause of demise. The autopsy revealed a horrifying truth. Christian's life was ended as a result of poisoning and strangulation. There were fluids in his lungs. These findings confirmed that his disappearance had not been accidental, but the result of a violent and deliberate act. As the investigation into Christian's disappearance progressed, the authorities focused on the last known person to have seen him, Pedro Bravo. Pedro was soon invited in for questioning. During his initial interview, he told the police that he had been struggling with thoughts of ending his own life and had reached out to Christian for emotional support. He admitted that they had a few disagreements during their time together, and added an unusual detail. A random hitchhiker had supposedly joined them in the car for part of the ride. To verify his statements, the authorities asked Pedro to walk them through the exact route he and Christian had taken on the Day of the disappearance. Not long after, Pedro was placed in custody under a 72-hour hold, cited as a precaution to ensure he was not a danger to himself. While in custody, Pedro was subjected to a second round of interrogation. This time, the investigators noticed inconsistencies in his story. He admitted that the disagreement between him and Christian had escalated into a physical altercation after the supposed hitchhiker was dropped off, marking a significant change from his earlier version of events. The investigators began to explore the relationship dynamics between Christian and Pedro more deeply. They soon discovered that the tension between the two went beyond a simple disagreement. Before Christian began dating Erica Freeman, she had been in a relationship with Pedro. All three had attended the same high school in Doral, Florida. Erica and Pedro had ended their relationship in 2012 during their senior year, shortly before Erica enrolled at Santa Fe Community College. Christian and Erica started seeing each other not long after starting college. But out of respect and concern, they chose to keep their relationship hidden from Pedro. Their efforts to keep the relationship secret were unsuccessful. Pedro eventually found out through mutual friends, and the revelation reportedly left him feeling betrayed. The investigators learned that Pedro had taken the breakup hard, and discovering that Erica had moved on with Christian only fueled his anger. His mental health, already in decline, began to spiral. Further, using his emotional struggles as a pretext, Pedro contacted Christian under the guise of needing support. The investigators believed this was all part of a calculated plan to lure Christian into a vulnerable situation. With clear signs pointing to a motive, the authorities intensified their efforts to gather evidence. One troubling detail stood out to detectives: Pedro's lack of genuine concern for Christian's well-being. Based on this and other findings, they charged him with failure to render aid and secured a search warrant for his vehicle. During the search, they uncovered traces of dirt and limestone in the undercarriage, which were later identified as matching soil from Levy County, the same area where Christian's remains had been found. A Gatorade bottle and a roll of duct tape were also retrieved and sent for analysis. Further searches yielded even more incriminating discoveries. At Pedro's residence, the investigators found a receipt for the recent purchase of a shovel. Digging deeper, they examined his personal journal and uncovered chilling details. Entries revealing his obsession with rekindling his relationship with Erica and his belief that Christian's removal was key to achieving that goal. The writings laid out a disturbing plan, confirming what investigators had begun to suspect. Pedro Bravo had allegedly orchestrated Christian's disappearance out of jealousy, rage, and heartbreak. On September 24, 2012, Pedro was officially arrested and charged with first-degree slaying. As the investigation progressed, law enforcement received toxicology reports revealing that the Gatorade bottle retrieved from Pedro's vehicle contained traces of sedatives, specifically acetaminophen and dihydramine. Pedro claimed that the substances were intended for taking his own life, but the authorities viewed the explanation with skepticism given the growing weight of evidence against him. Further analysis of Pedro's phone records showed that his device had been pinged for several